M.S. and Doctor of Education from Oklahoma State University, and he speaks nationally and internationally on STEM education, project-based learning, technological literacy, standards, and curriculum development. He is the author of 26 books and book chapters, over 65 journal articles, and numerous curriculum sets. He's conducted more than 100 presentations and keynote addresses at state, national, and international conferences, and Daugherty has been the recipient of numerous awards, including the Technology Teacher Educator of the Year Award by the American Council on Technology Teacher Education, the Award of Distinction by ITEEA, and most recently, the Mary Margaret Scobie Award by the Elementary STEM Council. Wow. We also have Virginia Jones, who is the president-elect of ITEEA, as well as the Dean of Student Success and Enrollment Services at Patrick Henry Community College in Martinsville, Virginia. Dr. Jones also serves as co-field editor of ITEEA's Children's Technology and Engineering, vice president of programming for the Elementary STEM Council, and chair of ITEEA's Membership Diversity Task Force. She is a former CTE and algebra teacher and middle school principal. Now, without further ado, I will hand it away to Dr. Daugherty. Uh-oh, you're on mute, Dr. Daugherty.
I do that more often than I should. I don't know what it is about that, but thank you, Rebecca.
Yes, thank you.
And I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to be here with my co-host, Virginia Jones. And so we're just going to be real casual about this, and hopefully we can answer any questions that you might have about the Global Design Challenge and how you might use it in your classes. And I do hope that you all engage in this. It's a lot of fun, and I think it's a good opportunity for your students as well. Virginia, do you want to say anything at the outset?
Really, I'm just here because I have, I'm president-elect, so I'm excited about becoming president next year at the virtual conference. I think I may end up being the virtual president of ITEEA. But anyway, this is such an exciting challenge, and it's really so neat. And this one this year could not have fit more perfectly into what's happening in the world today. So I think that while everything is different and unusual in how we're talking with our students, this challenge right here is something that I think everybody can really attach to and really get a lot of information out of it. So Michael's going to tell you all of that good stuff.
Well, thank you, Virginia. And it is interesting because several years ago, this is our third Global Design Challenge. Several years ago, the Elementary STEM Council decided that we ought to issue these global challenges just to show the world that elementary students can solve problems too. And we based these off the Grand National Challenges developed by the National Academy of Engineering. And we've had very successful competitions in the past, but when we developed this one, I was a little concerned when I first sent this to ITEEA that, you know, this whole pandemic may be over by the time the school year starts, because this was developed last January or February, and everybody was saying, oh, a month or so this will be over, and I thought, well, that's a risk we need to take, because obviously there will probably be future pandemics, but little did any of us know this thing may go on forever. But anyway, it's still a good problem to solve. It's very timely. And I think it's a problem that elementary children and students can get into. They can solve this. They can help us solve this. And so I'm going to go through this presentation. And if you have questions during this presentation, just log them in on the chat, and then at the end we'll have lots of time for Q&A and to go over any concerns that you might have or any questions that you might have about the Global Design Challenge, the third annual Global Design Challenge. So now I'm going to share my screen with you, and we'll go through this presentation. And hang on just a second. All right. So this is a challenge for elementary students, and we're going to let you define what an elementary student is in your district. So that could be anywhere from K through 6. And you know, I've had a few questions. People have emailed me a few questions. Well, in our district, we consider up to 8th grade elementary, and if it's called elementary at your site, we're cool with that. So, but it's an opportunity for elementary age students to use the engineering design process and solve a real world problem. So hopefully everybody can see this slide that says Third Annual Global Design Challenge. Please speak up if you can't see that. All right. So a little bit of background on the Global Design Challenges. It's based on the 14 grand challenges that were designed by the National Academy of Engineering. And this was in the early 2000s. If you want to know more about those grand national challenges, you can just type that in on your browser, grand national challenges, and you'll get them. It'll be one of the first things that come up. And these were issued, these were just a group of scholars got together and decided these are things that we all need to be working toward. And there are things like we need to make medicine cheaper and easier. We need to reduce pollution. And there's a series of these challenges that are hard to solve. But when I looked at these challenges, being a person who deals a great deal with elementary STEM teachers, I thought there are bits and pieces of this that we can solve in elementary classrooms. We can address these. These don't have to be things that we leave to people older than us. So I think that even young people can think about solutions to big national and international problems. And we should give them the opportunity to do that. And I always preach to my pre-service STEM teachers that you need to try to develop STEM challenges that are real and challenges that are of importance both locally and nationally. And this is one of those. So when we first developed this idea, it was the Elementary STEM Council as a subset of ITEEA, and we were trying to develop something that elementary aged children could sink their teeth into a real problem, and this is certainly a real problem. And of course, we want the students to use the engineering design process as they attempt to solve this. And so that means to me that they're working in small teams, maybe 3 students, maybe 4, but small teams, collaborative teams, because we really want to get at those 21st century skills of collaborate, cooperate, communicate, etc. And we want them to work in these design teams, and that means that they're using the engineering design process. And hopefully you all have had a chance to use the engineering design process, but really what we're looking for them to do is to work as a team to clarify the problem and define the problem, to do some research to see how others have solved problems like this before and what ideas can they borrow, because good inventors borrow ideas from others, and then conduct some research and develop some different ideas that they can sort through, maybe do some brainstorming and then start to winnow down those brainstormed ideas to clarify one idea that they'd like to move forward with, and then complete some ideation on that idea to the point where maybe they make a model or maybe even a prototype. You don't have to go as far as a prototype here, but that would be really neat if you did. And then do some testing of it, go out and see if it works. In this case, you're making something that would cause people to wash their hands for at least 20 seconds. And so you could go test it and see if it works, and see if students enjoy using this, and if they actually increase the hand washing time. So that's the engineering design process, and it always ends with defending your idea and communicating the results. And so the communicating the results is where we want them to put together a journal or an inventor's log, and then present to us in a short video telling us what they found. Did it work? How did it test? Did people like it? Would people use it? Would it help solve the problem? So the engineering design process goes through this cycle, this loop, and it ends with communicating the results. And that is what we want to see in this particular case. We want to see that presentation where they talk about how they went through the engineering design process to attempt to solve this problem. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So the challenge is to build a device that would help people wash their hands for at least 20 seconds. This is something that the Center for Disease Control has suggested is a good way to stop the spread of COVID-19. And it also, of course, encourages cleanliness, but most people don't wash their hands for 20 seconds. And I've just, as a casual observer, since we wrote this problem, I've just kind of started watching people, particularly in the restrooms, and they don't wash. Nobody washes their hands for 20 seconds. It doesn't seem to me anyway. I think people are more diligent about washing their hands now, but I don't think they do it for a full 20 seconds. So this is a device that we could really use. And I said the word device, so this is something to keep in mind. We're not looking for a process. We're not looking for a poster on the wall. We're looking for a device, a product that encourages them to wash their hands for 20 seconds. And think about your audience. I mean, if you're in elementary school and you want to encourage elementary age children to wash their hands for at least 20 seconds, it might involve a game. It might involve some kind of challenge. But it needs to be a product, not a poster. I mean, we can get a poster from the CDC, but it really hasn't caused people to wash their hands for 20 seconds. But we want a product, something that lets people know, no, you've only washed your hands for 10 seconds. No, you've only washed your hands for 15 seconds. So some kind of product. And again, even after the pandemic is over, hopefully soon, it will encourage cleanliness. So that's the challenge. This particular global design challenges, it fits with a lot of standards that you might want to deliver in your elementary classroom. Some of the standards from the new standards for technology and engineering literacy, this is one that I thought it would fit pretty nicely. It's standard 1C, recognize that creating can be done by anyone. Using technology and engineering tools and techniques, anyone can design or improve things to enhance their lives. The creation of knowledge, approaches, and inventions can occur through either individual or collaborative efforts. Even young children can view themselves as creators. So there's two terms in there that you really ought to focus on, and that is the term creation and innovation. So creation is a wholly new idea, and innovation is the improvement of an old idea. So either of those would be sufficient here. And it's ironic that those are the same things that the US Patent and Trademark Office use to determine the merits of patent applications, whether it's an innovation, and if it is, that would be a design patent, or whether it's a wholly new idea, and that would be a utility patent. A lot of people, when they think about inventions, they think everything that the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office patents is a completely new idea, but that's not true. Most patents issued by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office are design patents, which means they're an improvement of an old idea. So a better mousetrap or a better picture frame. So if you were the one that invented the digital picture frame, that thing has been improved upon so many times. Now, of course, you can give your grandparents a digital picture frame that you can send an email to, and it'll post new pictures on it. So that's an improvement of the digital picture frame. So that is a design patent. Anyway, so there's a whole lot of things you can teach there related to innovation and creativity. And of course, there's a good standard from the Next Generation Science Standards about designing a simple design problem that reflects a need or a want. And that's really good too, because most children, most younger students don't recognize that there is a difference between developing a product for a need or developing a product for a want. And unfortunately, most of the things that we purchase at the store are not needs, they're wants. Most of the things we buy are wants, not needs. But there's a difference in the way that you develop them. There's a difference in the way you market them. And there's a difference in their value to society. So there's a lot of standards there. And of course, I would encourage you to include some literacy standards, some math standards, some social studies standards. This topic is rich for English language arts. You're going to require them to keep a journal, probably, or inventor's log. You're going to require them to give a presentation. You're going to require them to work collaboratively with their team. Lots of English language arts standards there that you could address. Of course, the social studies, this pandemic has created a whole wealth of things that we could address related to social studies. And of course, mathematics could fit in here very nicely too. And I would also encourage you to, if you're developing what standards you would address to teach this in your classroom. And of course, most elementary school principals would want to know that you're addressing important standards that you're going to teach anyway. The 21st century skill standards, this thing could be rich for that, particularly when you're talking about those 4 C's, cooperation, collaboration, communication, and I forget the 4th one. But anyway, those are important things that you could address here too. So I don't want you to think that if I do this in my classroom, I'm going to have to put everything else on hold. No, I would integrate this into your teaching so that you're still teaching important standards, important content, and this is just how you're teaching it. And of course, you're dealing with using the engineering design process, which is really helpful too, because they need to learn how to use this. It's a heuristic. It's a way people solve problems. It's a mental challenge in creativity and innovation. So you could use standards related to the engineering design process or scientific inquiry or the scientific method. I mean, there's a lot of standards there that and a lot of big ideas that you could address also. And so the big ideas that I kind of pulled out of this is, and I don't know if you all use Wiggins and McTighe's backward design model for curriculum, but I do. And so I always, when I'm developing a lesson, and I thought about this as a lesson when I developed it, is I always try to pull out what are the big ideas, what do I want students to walk away with when they're finished with this lesson or this activity, or this, in this case, challenge. I want them to know that washing your hands often can prevent the spread of viruses, and that we can develop products that are designed to help people take care of themselves. That one is really tightly connected to the grand national challenges from the National Academy of Engineering. Another big idea is that many special tools and devices are used to remind people of important things. So in your case, maybe in your school, you have machines and devices that are designed to tell you when class is over. Maybe you have a bell system, or maybe you have a system that tells people when school is over or when school is starting. I mean, that would be an example. You have exit signs in the building that tell people where to go in case of emergencies. So there's a lot of special tools and devices that are used to remind people of important things. And in this case, we're just asking the students to develop a device or a tool or a system that would remind people that they need to wash their hands for 20 seconds. And last big idea here is people use communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity to solve really hard problems. And that's what we're asking these students to do here, is to use their creativity, their critical thinking, their collaborating with their team to solve a really hard problem that really, the truth is, nobody solved this problem before. I mean, that is kind of interesting. You could actually solve an international problem that nobody has a good solution to yet, because I can tell you everywhere I go, I don't see people washing their hands for 20 seconds. So those are the big ideas. The process, and this is just our suggestion. The students should work in small collaborative design teams. I think 3 is the ideal number, but you're the judge of that. But you know, if you get a team that's too large, there's people that are less engaged than others. And so I would encourage you to have smaller design teams. And that could mean that you have some kind of internal school competition to narrow the number that you actually submit to ITEA as finalists. So that way you don't have to submit 63 teams and 63 videos and 63 journals. And I mean, you could narrow the field a bit at your end before submitting the top 10 or the top 5. I mean, that would be totally up to you, but I would encourage you not to have huge teams. I mean, you can do that, but I would encourage you to go with a smaller team, because the students will get more out of it, and they'll be less likely to coast along with the students who are leading the effort. I'd encourage you to document the process by having the students keep a journal or a portfolio or inventor's log, whatever you want to call it, and try to make that journal match up with the engineering design process, where you have a section where they clarify the problem, a section where they keep their research, a section where they keep sketches and drawings, you know, a section where they're testing their model or their prototype, a section where they're presenting it. And this could all be digital. It doesn't have to be paper-based. But what we are looking for at the end is we're looking for them to see that they use the engineering design process, and we're looking to have them really demonstrate that they get how they reached the conclusion they reached. So when you have that all together, then you submit the solution for consideration. And really what we're looking for is maybe a 2-part entry. One is a journal, you know, a digital picture of their journal or their portfolio, maybe some highlights of it, and then and maybe some pictures along the way of them working. And then finally, a 2 or 3 minute presentation. And I would encourage you to have them really think about this presentation. It doesn't have to be the whole team presenting. And frankly, teachers out there, you know, those presentations where 3 students stand at the front and they said, well, I did this, now Jimmy's going to say what he did, and then Jimmy's going to talk for a while, and then Susie's going to talk about what she did. And that's not a very interesting presentation. I would encourage them to think a little bit about their presentation, and maybe they have a spokesperson for their team that that actually presents it like you would present it on Shark Tank or something like that, rather than the kind of standard, boring, repetitive type of product presentations you sometimes get from students. So that's what we're wanting to be submitted. There is pretty much three things: a journal, a journal or a portfolio, some pictures along the way, and then them presenting their product idea. Again, I'm kind of going along with Wiggins and McTighe's understanding by design, and so we do need to put some limits on this, so that just like we do anytime we use the engineering design process, we have to have limits to keep them inside the box we want them in, because you and I know this thing could go on for ages if you didn't have limits on them, on the students, on the teams. So again, we want the students to develop a product, not a method, because this is project-based learning. This is hands-on STEM. We don't want them developing a theory or developing a PowerPoint presentation. We want them developing a product. It should be low cost or free. We don't want them spending a whole lot of money on this. And so if they could retrofit something, if they could borrow things, it doesn't have to be expensive. And it could be reused things, or it could be things from the classroom that they could take apart and reuse in a different way. But please don't spend a lot of money on this. I don't think there's any reason that you can't solve this free. And so, I really don't want people to think that, oh, if we have to have a lot of money to do this global design challenge. You do not have to have a lot of money. You just have to be creative and innovative. Again, the device or the product needs to remind people to wash their hands often and for 20 seconds. So really two things: wash your hands often and wash them for 20 seconds while you're washing them. And this next one is not mandatory, but it would be a real asset to the competition if you could develop a product that does not require a common language. So it could be used anywhere. This pandemic is not just in the United States, it's everywhere. And we don't want to have to develop different languages for this. So, think about how ITEEA, if you bought a piece of ITEEA furniture lately, the directions probably don't have any words. They're just pictures. So think about that. If you can do that, that would be a real plus. You don't have to do that, but think about how you could get people to wash their hands for 20 seconds without even using a common language. So, and last, test your product with classmates and document how well it goes. So maybe you put it up in a restroom at the school and see if people change their hand washing habits, and see if it works. So document your tests of it. Put it up at home and see if your kids' parents wash their hands longer. So whatever you come up with, but those are some limitations for the global design challenge. And so lastly, the reward. We will give you a slot at the conference for the team that wins to present virtually, and of course we'll publicize the heck out of you on the website and in the journal, the STEM journal. You get a free iSTEM membership for a year, and you get a chance to really sell the kids on this is a real world challenge. This is not something I made up so you guys could have something to do today. People need this problem solved. This is a real challenge for the entire population of the world. So let's solve it here at our school. Your students get a chance to practice using the engineering design process and in a real way, and practice working in collaborative teams. So a lot of rewards here for this, and I think that's my last one. I'm going to stop the share, and then we can address any questions that people might have about the Global Design Challenge.
Yes, thank you so much, Mike, for that really informative presentation on the Global Design Challenge. So just as a reminder, if you have any questions at all, please place them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and they will be addressed in the order that they are received. So my first question has to do with the history of the Global Design Challenge. Can you talk a little bit about when it started?
Yeah, so this is our third design challenge, and the first year was 3 years ago. And so the first year we took on the Grand National Challenge related to medicine. And so the first year we had students design a system that would help young children take medicine without such a struggle. So if any of you have had young children, you know it's a challenge to get them to take their medicine when they're sick. You got to kind of hold them down and force it on them. And so we had students come up with different methods that they thought would encourage young children to take their medicine with less trepidation and less fighting back. And so we had some really clever ideas where most of it had to do with kind of hiding the medicine inside something that didn't look like medicine. And anyway, we had a lot of fun with that one. The second year we were trying to tackle global pollution. And if any of you, and this is also from the Grand National Challenges, and if any of you have heard of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, where there's an island out there the size of Texas that's just nothing but garbage that's largely being dumped there by India and China, because the way the currents flow, it swirls off the Asian coast and goes and creates a massive island of trash in the South Pacific. And so we were trying to come up with ways that could be used to capture that. Come up with a system that you could demonstrate that could be used to capture waste. And so anyway, those are our three challenges that we've done so far, counting this one we're doing this year.
Great, thank you. What process is taken to choose the design challenge problem? How many people are involved, and so on?
Well, the Elementary STEM Council, of course, all evaluates them, and then I have a large graduate program, and the graduate students review them, and we have a process where they all blind review them and select their top choices. And so they're blind reviewed by members of the Elementary STEM Council and a group of doctoral students and master's students at the University of Arkansas. And so far, unfortunately, I haven't had any of my own students participate in this. So it's not like there's any home cooking or anything. So, and if there were, we'd find a different group to evaluate them. Hopefully I will have some participation this year, because we have a lot of elementary STEM teachers out there, but so far none. But anyway, that's the process. The Elementary STEM Council reviews it, and the group of 10 graduate students in elementary STEM evaluate them as well.
Great. So this is specific to the journal or the inventor's log. So should it be paper and pencil or digital format, or does it matter for this challenge?
It's totally up to you, but if you do a paper and pencil, just take pictures of it and just give us some good examples out of it. And you don't have to send the journal in, but But if they do in fact, I kind of dig paper and pencil journals because I like to see the doodling and the things scratched out like that didn't work, you know. I kind of like to see that because but it doesn't have to be that way. But sometimes the digital ones are too clean, you know. They've taken all the junk out, and so. And I kind of like to see the junk, the ideas that didn't work. It shows me that you started with some bigger ideas and you narrowed them. Virginia, you had something here too.
Oh no, I was just going to say, it really depends on your students, you know, what's their level of ease with using technology to make an online one. But like he said, the paper and pencil one is the best because the important part of the design process is to realize that you're going to have ideas that fall apart or they just don't work. And that's probably one of the key learning takeaways you want to have your students experience. So having the paper and pencil is pretty nice.
Yeah.
So it sounds like if it's messy, that's okay. You
That's
want
fine.
that.
We like messy, yeah.
Can this be, how does this work in a hybrid or remote setting? Do you have any recommendations for handling school districts that might be in different formats right now?
Yeah, actually, I'm teaching all my courses remotely now, and they're all hands-on courses. We use the engineering design process, and so I issue these at-home challenges where they work collaboratively, but they are in different locations and they solve the problem together, and it involves building things. So, and it's working okay. I don't know if I mean, my students are a little more mobile than most of these students will be. So I would say whatever technique you're using currently, you know, try to use it there as well. And maybe you have them, put them in collaborative teams, and they all come up with a brainstorm of an idea, and they present it to the team, and the team decides, okay, we're going to take this part of yours and this part of yours, and we're going to combine them and make a final product. So you could start off by doing it individually and then have them start, you know, stealing ideas from each other until they get a collaborative product, and then they could each work on parts of it, parts to the whole, that sort of thing. So whatever works for you. We understand this is how it is now for a while, and we're happy with whatever you come up with.
So it sounds very flexible.
Yeah, very flexible.
Is there an engineering design process that works best or is recommended for elementary? So that's part one to the question. Part two is also, are there differences when teaching the engineering design steps to teach when working with pre-K to 2 and then grades 3 to 5? Yeah,
I think that younger students need a real simplified engineering design process, and maybe 4 steps. And honestly, you can go to your browser and just type engineering design loop or engineering design process, and you'll get hundreds of different ones. But also you can send me an email and I'll send you some too. That's an assignment I make every teacher education, every STEM student in our teacher education program has to develop their own engineering design process that they want to use. And so if they want to teach kindergarten or first grade, it's a little more simplified. If they want to teach middle school, it's a little bit more complex. But honestly, I can send you 1,000 of them if you want, and they're all a little different. But really, a good way is just to go to your internet browser and type engineering design loop or engineering design process, and you'll get all of them. There is no standard format for them, and I think that's wonderful. I don't want there to be a standard format. I want it to be grassroots. So no, there's not a standard one, but basically just going through that, you know, that ideation, starting off with clarifying the problem. What is it we're going to do? And 2, do some research, you know, how people solve problems like this. What resources do we have? You know, and then generate a bunch of ideas and start borrowing from them and winnowing them down to one idea. and then build it, and then test it, and then retest it, and rebuild it, and then present it, and then test again. And, you know, that kind. It's a heuristic, that it's a way of thinking that we want students to go through. We want them to get into that creative process, and that's a way to do it.
And Virginia mentioned in the comments, NASA has great ones for early elementary, and there are several
Yep.
shown in past issues of the Elementary STEM Journal.
Yep, yep.
It seems great to make it into a research project where you are looking into what companies have done in the past, what they're doing now. I mean, it doesn't get more relevant to real world experiences than this topic.
Yeah.
Another question, how long does it take to choose the winner or group of winners of the best solution? What process is taken to choose the winner?
It's a week or two. It's not long. And sometimes they come trickling in for a while, but once we get them, a week or two, it's not long. So we'll get them in December, and then, you know, January, we'll know who's won.
We'll probably know by inauguration day, which is better than the voting process. There
Yeah,
you go.
right. It won't drag on for months. So, yeah. What was the second half of that question?
What process is taken to choose the winner?
Okay, yeah. So the Elementary STEM Council looks at it, and then we have this panel of graduate students that looks at it, and they all review it blindly. So there's no talking or comparing notes, and so they send me their top 2 or 3. I can't remember, it's 2 or 3 winners, and then we see where we are, and then sometimes we have to send it out a second time and say, these are the top 3, evaluate these top 3. And honestly, we're looking for the use of the engineering design process, and we're looking at the elegance of the solution, and we're looking at students who give a presentation that really tells us they know it, they've got it, they did this, you know. So those are kind of 3 things that we're really looking for.
Can you talk at all about what set the winner apart in past years? Was there any standout, or was it just kind of having strong brainstorming and journal plus having a strong idea?
Uh,
I can't remember the first year, but
I can tell you about the first year.
okay.
I'm gonna tell you about the first year because I have 4 children, and when I saw what was the winning, because this was how to make medicine easier to give to children, and you know, a pacifier, except they called it a binky, you know, all sorts of names, but you know, it's got that little cap on the end of it. You put the medicine in there, put it back on there, stick the pacifier in a kid's mouth, and it was like miraculous. I was like, why did nobody ever think of this before? But those kids, they kept that journal, and they had the messy journal, the scratches, the boo-boos, the back and forth. But they sold that presentation, because once they hit on I think they called it the Badger Binkies or something. But anyway, once they hit on that, they were in it 100%, and they had a wonderful presentation. It was short, but it was like they were, you know, selling on an infomercial on TV. They had it down pat.
Yeah. So, you know, one thing teachers could do is have the kids watch Shark Tank or something like that. How do people present their ideas? And that would be a good learning experience for them too. But I remember Binkies now that you mentioned. That was their commercial was really, it was like an infomercial. It was really good. Yeah.
I love that idea.
It was crazy.
I think it's brilliant. Thank you for sharing how the Grand Challenge connects with the STEL core standards and practices. Where can I and my colleagues find more resources on learning about and using the standards for technological and engineering literacy, or STEL?
Okay, somebody just put it on there, the website for the standards for engineering, technology and engineering. So you can go to that. It's available to everybody. And if you haven't been to these standards lately, they're awesome. They're just a massive, giant leap forward for teaching technology and engineering, and they are they're not, we don't call them benchmark, but they move forward from pre-K upward, and they're very, very readable and usable. I'm just really proud of them, and I think that in my university, what we do is we prepare people to teach elementary STEM. That's what we do. Yeah, and this is like their Bible. I mean, it's just the perfect thing for them, because it breaks it down in a simple format, and you can see the practices, and you can see the context within which you might apply these. So if you haven't looked into these standards, they're so good and so helpful for you. But don't forget, I mean, if you're teaching STEM at the elementary or middle school, bring in some English language arts too, and some social studies and some math, because we really do need to, when we're teaching STEM, we need to really be integrated. It can't just be technology and engineering. We need to bring in other disciplines too. That's my soapbox. I'll get off it now.
That was great.
It is great.
So can this be scaled up at all to middle and high school level? And do you expect there to be any opportunities for middle and high school in the future?
I think I'd love it if you did that. I'll tell you what, if you're a middle school or a high school teacher and you want to try this with your students, and I don't think you're eligible to win the contest, but if you send it to me and it's awesome, I'll send you a t-shirt. I'll send your kids a t-shirt, so
teachers might hold you to that.
Yeah, they can. So try it with your junior high or middle school. But if you can count your middle school and elementary, that's fine. We can do that, but probably not junior high and above. But if you want to scale it up and you come up with a really great idea, I've got a huge box of stuff. I'll send them a gift or something. Maybe a University of Arkansas t-shirt or something,
Right. Yeah, we really did this because there's not that many opportunities for elementary STEM learners to participate in a challenge. Once you get to middle level education and high school, you have your different opportunities to participate, robotics, different things like that. But there was really this huge deficit. And we know that getting those students engaged when they are in pre-K, first grade, whatever, if you get them engaged and keep them engaged every year with more exciting, interesting, relevant things to them, then you've got them hooked for life. And that's what we're trying to do.
Right.
Love it. And it sounds so multidisciplinary also. You mentioned social studies and math and science. Right. It's across the board, it sounds like.
It is. And if they go to the STIL page on ITEEA, there are so many resources out there. We've got the verbs, we've got the crosswalks to the other standards. There's so much out there. You could just have a great time downloading all this information. But that's the whole aim, is that this is not in a vacuum. It all has to be connected to everything that they learn.
Right. I'm even thinking of STEM clubs. A lot of elementary schools are adopting those. That would be fun.
Around here, a lot of 4-H clubs and things like that are doing that, are using them as well.
Is there any limitation to how many submissions per school or per class or anything like that?
No. But I mean, what I would encourage you, you as a teacher, you can see your top 20%, right? And so if you know that the team is not going to be competitive, even among their own classmates, maybe you don't send them. But no limits. If you got 20 good teams, send them. Whatever you have.
Awesome. Well, actually, one last quick question in the chat. What is the highest number of submissions over the 3 design challenges? Why do you think that design challenge had the most?
Last year, we had one school that had 15 or 18 submissions. Yeah, a lot,
Mhm.
a lot. And but please do adhere to that 2 to 3 minute video suggestion. Some of them got a little bit long-winded, but yeah, try to keep the videos succinct. And I mean, if you go to Shark Tank, they're not going to give you 30 minutes to present your idea. So maybe that would be a good suggestion, is have them watch that first.
So you mentioned 18 or so submissions from a school district. Do you remember off the top of your head how many submissions overall, or?
Oh, no, I don't. But it was the biggest by far. So we've had, most of the other schools submitted 5 or 3 or 8. But that, I think there was one school that submitted a lot of them last year, and that's fine. Feel free to do that.
Yeah. We hope we
Do you
get a
think
lot
there was
this year.
Oh, I think you will, based on that topic. Do you think there's any kind of reason why there were a lot of submissions last year? Was the topic also really relevant to current events, or?
Well, the first year, I think we were slow getting off the mark a little bit. It was very novel. It was very new, and most people didn't know a lot about it. And so we had a decent number of submissions, but not like we had last year. But last year was about, that the trash issue and things like that. And I think that resonated with a lot of people.
Yeah.
The people who won were from Florida. So, that kind of makes sense. That's a big priority for them.
Mm-hmm.
If the submissions keep growing in number, it might take longer to choose a winner going forward.
Right.
So I think that's all the questions. I'll just read a comment in the chat. An idea that spins off of this idea is to have a secondary teacher work with his or her students to prepare and demonstrate the process to one of their elementary school classes in their district. This helps the teachers at the elementary level work slowly and learn by example, while the students get very excited in doing this type of leadership activity to teach younger children.
I love it.
Yeah.
That would be great. That would be great. And maybe, one thing I've mentioned several times here is talk when you're going through the engineering design process. Probably the second or third step is research. Do some research, and so you go out and you talk to experts. Well, maybe your elementary students go talk to high school kids, and they try to find out how long do you wash your hands? Why don't you wash them longer? What would encourage you to wash them longer? And so, I mean, they can work with high school students, and they can work with professionals. They can go talk to local doctors and nurses, and so the high school could be a resource for the elementary students as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So it looks like that's all the questions in the comment box. So thank you again so much to Dr. Daugherty and Dr. Jones for this really informative presentation on the Global Design Challenge. And I hope you get a lot of entries and maybe some middle school and high school so they could get a t-shirt.
Well, sure. Yeah. Send us questions if you have questions that come up later. My email, and I think Virginia's email is on the Global Design Challenge. So shoot us an email if you have more questions. I've already gotten probably 6 or 7 teachers who have emailed me questions. So feel free to do that.